If you've seen any of my videos, you know how this is gonna go. So today what we're doing is we're going to install the Intellitronix digital gauges. That's my tray for part. Power currently disconnected to the battery. To start at the center console. Right, to remove the center console, you have 2 screws up top. And now mind you, this is for the 77. And then you have a screw on this side and a screw on the opposite side. This panel here is held with a screw on the side. You can access it with a small 1/4-inch ratchet. So once you knock out those 2 bottom screws and the 2 top screws, you'll notice that the center console just simply comes out. Once you pop this console out, obviously it's still going to be connected to some things, but this is where it becomes very important to start matching wires. So I'm going to start out by disconnecting the map light here, and no need to get too fancy, just disconnect this harness. Alright, so with the 77, the original harness just disconnects out the back. If you do not intend on routing all new wires, now mind you, Intellitronix does highly recommend, due to continuity and resistance, that you route new wires, but if you do not, you want to get a wiring diagram at this point, and hopefully I'm going to be able to take some of that trouble away from you. I'm going to look up some of this in a second here and get back with you, but you want to label each of these wires because they're going to go to the new set of gauges. Your radio stuff, just clean it up, zip tie it, you know, get it out of the way. I've got the 2 harnesses. And then this is what the back of your 77 gauges look like. All that's going to come off. And then we're going to put on the new circuitry. Exciting, exciting. These bolts. And that should be it. They pop out. Now you may need a flat tip screwdriver to remove the little clock arm here. The cap just comes off like that. Here you want to clean things up, use a gentle spray. Don't scratch anything. You can sell these some of this stuff. And bag everything up neatly. Don't forget to label, of course. Labeling is extremely important because you want to make sure things go back the way they came. So we're gonna clean a little bit of this up, as should you, and we'll move on to the next step. Spacers that go there. Make sure you don't lose those. They will need to go back. Continuously remove each and every one of these. Take the printed circuit board from Intellitronix and carefully press it in. These 2 corners will rub a little bit, and if you are careful, you will not have to cut, and they will help you by applying pressure to keep the gauges from falling out. I routed all the wires out the back just like that. We are going to install the smoked face next, and then the gauges, and we will probably actually have to make foam gaskets for these indicator. For me, I'm going to clip the harness and keep it in a bag, but I'm going to use butt connectors And this is what the males look like. You can get them at AutoZone or Advanced Auto Parts. And these are the females. So this will be on the car side since that's the live side. With this oil temp sender, because on the C3 Corvette you don't have oil temperature as a stock option, typically you either have pressure. You see where that copper bung is on the China wall back there, right by the distributor? Well, you either have pressure or temperature coming off of this. For my OE option, my pressure sender is down by the filter. So that's where I kept it, and that's where I'm going to keep the pressure for this gauge kit. And here it is. Here's what everybody's been curious about. How do you get into the firewall? Real easy. You have this little vacuum tubes going into the firewall here. Look how easy that is to get in. You see, you can already see inside it. Don't drill new holes, just go in through there. Seal it up if you want. Next is the wiring, so we're gonna start wiring this. And I promised I'm going to post the wiring for these colors right now. Alright, when you install the oil temp sensor, you want to use a size 12 extension, and that'll get it into the China wall. Then you just route your wire, clean it up, use some coating or some conduit, and get it inside the firewall. New wire for the oil temperature sender. Just go ahead and simply route it behind the pedals and back up through your center console here. And then we're gonna zip tie all of the harness together, and I'm going to clip the harness, and we're going to create a new set of wires for the gauges, and that's it, at least for the center gauges. As you notice, this pin connector has numbers. Its correct orientation is up, and you'll notice because there are 2 empty slots. So as long as you can look at the diagram here, and then compare it to this chart, you can get an idea of what goes where. The low fuel in the generator. If you wire up these lights, you'll need a T10 connectors, and then they're going to splice into specific wires based off the old harness. So you're going to need grounds to all of those, especially, you know, for the wires, with the exception of the alternator, which is going to use the brown, which comes directly from the alternator plug, and then a hot, which is the switched pink here. So you can see how I'm labeling all of these. Some people will, you know, make a pin connector, some won't, but just keep in mind, if you're going to use those lights, that you have to splice them in. Light, you need to have the brown, which, as you can see, I spliced, so this will go to the new gauges, and you have the brown wire there. And then I have a black wire representing the negative side of the generator warning bulb. Okay, now for the positive side, you have the pink, which is the switched positive. That'll go to the gauges. And then I have a positive side of the generator warning bulb. So these two give the indication if there is low voltage, and I will be retaining that. Additionally, on the Eckler's chart or zip chart, I have the pink and white, which is representative of the seatbelt indicator. So I'm going to connect that bulb up. I will not be using the low fuel light just because I think the visual display is enough for me, but I'll help you out if you decide to use it, and we can work through that together. Everything else is labeled right now, and I'm just waiting for the T10 connectors to come so I can connect those lights that I will be using into that cluster. Then we will mount it. If you're curious what this is, revisiting, this is the map light, so go ahead and give that a nice bright LED while you're got all this out, so that way you can light up your air conditioning controls. Alright, so once you have all the button connectors set up and labeled, it's time to grab your instructions, follow these wires, and connect them to the appropriately labeled wires to the car. Remember to use your printed circuit board instructions that I've shown you a couple times, and also keep this handy because it's easy to reference the colors. Now, for most who have a 77 like I do, you will not have a alternator that requires an exciter wire, which is this pink and white one. The instructions say just cut it. I just secured it, taped it up, and put it behind in case we were to ever go back to it. I do have this tapped Gen minus and Gen positive. Again, we talked about that before, but that is for when I run the alternator warning light. And then I have the seatbelt light that's still not connected. Other than that, everything's connected. The alternator butt will not actually be used, so you can secure that. It just gets tied off for the generator warning light. After everything's connected, you are going to finish these next two steps so that way you can test the center console. You are going to install the 3/8 bung if that's what you have. Now remember, it's adapted, and add on a connector for that fitting using a crimper. And then you are also going to add on your new oil pressure sender, which is down there. And again, you're going to need another connector for that, a ring connector. So 2 ring connectors, get those crimped on, get those installed. Then it's time to test your gauges. The screws that allow us access to the panel and the steering column. Then you want to lower enough room to remove the stash. So you just want to start by removing all the screws, which we're going to do now. With the pillar screws removed, the T-tops trim screws. This next part, we are installing the variable speed sensor, which is basically a speed sensing device that replaces your speedometer cable. It utilizes a signal wire, which is the white, a red wire, which is power, and a black wire, which is ground. The white wire and the black wire can be routed together, but the red wire must not be routed with the white wire. This is actually very easy. Your sensor, you can tell, here's the transmission pan, and here's where the exhaust goes through the frame. That right there is the new sensor, but all you would do is literally take a 10mm, unbolt that clamp, pull the entire gear assembly out, and thread on the new sensor.